This is a story of an incident that happened back in 1934 on Kings Creek in Letcher County. On a cool April evening, my grandpa Ira Eldridge and his son Alvin were headed down a small hill close to the Kings Creek School when a shot rang out and my grandpa lost his life. A few days later, an article in the Mountain Eagle newspaper read, "The first killing in some time in Letcher County took place on Kings Creek Saturday, when 76-year-old Joe Creech waylaid and shot to death Ira Eldridge, about 30. The two had been arguing over Creech's wife for more than a year. Officials say Creech concealed himself in or around the head of Kings Creek in the school, then shot Eldridge as he passed by the school. The shot hit Eldridge in the back, killing him instantly. Eldridge belongs to one of the best families in Letcher County and one of the first families to settle here. Creech, who surrendered to authorities after the shooting, arrived in Letcher County about 20 years ago and has lived in several different parts of the county, including Sargent, Millstone, and Kona. Creech's second wife is from Kings Creek. The Letcher County grand jury will take up the case in the middle of May. Now, this article only gives you an overall general picture of what actually happened that evening on Kings Creek. My Uncle Alvin Eldridge was just a small boy at the time of the killing and had told me the story as he saw it. Alvin was with Grandpa when he was killed. He was walking a little bit behind him as they passed the Kings Creek School. He and Ira were headed back home after robbing a bee tree on Kings Creek. Alvin was carrying a bucket of honey, and Grandpa had 2 more buckets. As Grandpa neared the stream, a shot rang out from behind the school and Grandpa fell into the edge of the creek. Uncle Alvin said a man later identified as Joe Creech came running down to the place where Grandpa had fell, and as he approached Grandpa, who was still struggling to breathe, Joe Creech placed his boot on Ira's head and forced it into the cold water, drowning Grandpa. So the original article evidently was wrong. Uncle Alvin was scared to pieces and dropped his bucket of honey and ran as fast as he could home to tell the family what had happened. Family members arrived at the scene only to find Grandpa still face down in the water, dead. The sheriff was notified and started an investigation, and on Saturday night of that week, old man Joe Creech came to the county jail, surrendered himself to the officers, and was placed in jail. On Monday, he appeared before Judge Adams, where he waived examination and was held in jail to await action of the grand jury, which met about the middle of that month. Well, talk started around the community of why Creech would commit a crime such as this. Many people knew that Grandpa Ira had been seeing Creech's wife, but did this constitute a reason for murdering him? At the time of Grandpa's killing, my grandmother, Fanny Eldridge, was 4 months pregnant with my mother, Marie. She would never see her father. Many times I've sat down with Mom and talked about this killing. She would oftentimes well up with tears as she remembered Uncle Alvin's rendition of what happened. A few days later, on Thursday, May 31st, 1934, another article appeared in the Mountain Eagle, and it read, "After deliberating evidence for 3 or 4 hours, a Letcher Circuit Court jury failed to agree on a verdict in the murder case of Joe Creech, charged with the murder of Ira Eldridge. The jury reportedly could not agree on proper punishment for Creech, some jurors asking for 5 years and others holding out for a 2-year sentence. The case will be set for retrial." A few months later, This article ran in the newspaper. Yesterday afternoon, Joe Creech, 76, charged with the murder of Ira Eldridge, 27, about 3 months ago, was put on trial again. The same testimony as was advanced at a former trial at a May term failed to agree on a verdict. The killing took place on the head of Kings Creek in early April of this year. Creech formerly lived around Thornton and Millstone, where he's well known. Before this issue of the paper is printed, we may be able to give the results of the trial. And the results of the trial were given in an article that read, "Creech gets verdict of not guilty." Testimony in the case of the Commonwealth against Joe Creech and arguments on both sides ended in the forenoon today, and the case turned to the jury for a verdict. Soon after the noon hour, and only a few minutes of deliberation, a verdict of not guilty was rendered. Apparently, throughout the trial, the old man manifested no doubt as to what the results would be. This leaves one to wonder and speculate. If he had manifested no doubt as to what the results would be, what piece of evidence cleared him? We don't get that. The article doesn't mention anything about the actual proceedings themselves. Older folks have told me that times were much different then than now. If a man was seeing another man's wife, it was justification for killing. I don't see it that way. Also, some people have said that due to Creech's age, he was 76, the jury wouldn't convict him. What do you think?